going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Voice, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, special guest, Charlie McElvy. We are here to talk about American Yakuza, also the creator of Spider Squirrel and Godquest, as you can see right over here to my right. Thank you for being here, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about this book, now I'm of course familiar with your previous titles, which we aptly mentioned before.
Yeah.
And this is your first time jumping into a non-superhero adaptation. You've jumped into Capes and Cows, superpowers, what may have you. What made you want to decide to do an adaptation that was more so based on a storyline that you wanted to create that was outside of your wheelhouse, if you want to say that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think as a creator, like nothing's outside of our wheelhouses, right? So I think those of us who are, especially, when we're creating universes and worlds and stuff like that, there's so many possibilities. I think for this one, for me, I really just wanted to do something down to, or almost noir, down to earth, gritty, raw in some ways. It's just one of those stories that I've always wanted to tell. And so when I came up with the premise and everything, almost as soon as I came up with the premise, I was like, oh, I know who I want to work with on this one. So I already had my co-writers in mind. And I was really excited to reach out to them about this, which we can talk about as we go. But yeah, this is just one of those things. It's just an expansion of everything I've ever done. So, in fact, what I'm doing is I'm kind of rebranding a little bit right now. So I'm creating Blind Squirrel Comics, which is going to be most of my superhero. So really designating kind of my superhero
Right.
traditional comics world, right? And published by Zion Studios, of course. And then Zion Studios will be the overarching. So not unlike DC and Vertigo, but actually kind of flipped.
Gotcha.
Whereas the Vertigo stuff would be more of the Zion stuff, and
Yeah,
then the
more of the
traditional.
black label type of stuff.
Exactly. So, yeah, and this isn't the only idea I have in mind. I have a sci-fi story that I'm currently writing. It's prose right now, but it's lending itself a lot more to maybe doing a manga-esque type of translation, or maybe just a straight up comic. But it's going to be very, very sci-fi, and again, very human. Very. This won't be as gritty, but there'll be elements that are just totally not superhero. So it's just something I've always wanted to tell.
Yeah, definitely. And actually the title gave off the vibes of course, when I read it for the very first time, American Yakuza, I thought of American Ninja, and I was thinking like Michael Dudikoff. That was like the first thing that kind of like popped in my head.
That's funny. It's actually funny because I'm wearing one of my Ninja Warrior shirts right
Ah,
now. So,
see,
uh,
definitely. And of course, if anybody does not know, Charlie McElvy was a season 10 member of American Ninja Warrior.
yep.
So definitely. Okay. So replace everything I said. This is definitely within your wheelhouse, because this is kind of like something that you obviously been into from the beginning.
It is. So if you look at my DVD or Blu-ray library, you see I've got every Bruce Lee movie on Blu-ray. I just bought the 50th anniversary Enter the Dragon 4K. But I've got like the Shaw Brothers. That's all Kung Fu theater stuff,
Oh
if
yeah.
you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got Shaw
Channel
Brothers
5,
volumes 1 and 2.
2 p.m.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, yes. 88 films. So I mean, I've got so many of those, and people who know me know like The Last Samurai is one of my favorite movies. Yeah, it's got a little white savior thing going on, a little bit, but I really feel like in that movie specifically, like Ken Watanabe he's the last samurai, or really all of the samurai are the last samurai, and we're just seeing things through Tom Cruise's lens, right?
Right.
Um, so he's just to me, he's a plot device. But that being said, that and of course I love Shogun right now. It's fantastic.
I was gonna get into that.
Dude, oh, we could talk about it all day because I love it. But like a huge. So I'm learning Japanese. I listen to J rap. I listen to J hip hop, J pop. I listen to a little K-pop with my girls and stuff. My teenage kids love BTS and all that stuff.
Okay.
And it really just kind of drives home with me is like this is that medium that I wanted to get into, and that context. Some Asian flair. And really just talk about the stuff that I've always loved as a kid. So loved kung fu theater. I always loved, good dark gritty movies like The Crow,
Hmm.
with Brandon Lee, stuff like that. So yeah, this is totally like my thing. It fits for sure.
Definitely. Now, if we're talking about getting into the story in a sense, we're the main character, Xavier. who is an MMA fighter, former MMA fighter, who has taken in a little bit of investments in the past, and then comes to find out that his business partner has been killed and has to travel to Japan to see basically what happened. But ultimately, it sends him on this whirlwind roller coaster ride of
Yep.
things that he had no idea he had gotten himself into just by investing.
Yeah, this is one of those be careful what you wish for kind of things. And I think Xavier, obviously I know the end of the story having read the script, which I didn't, so Chris and Stokes wrote this, Chris Moses and Anthony Stokes wrote this, the treatment for me. So 100 pages. I've read all of it, and I add my little pieces to it here and there. But it's a really fun story. And yeah, you're right. This is one of those stories like you don't see the end coming necessarily until the end happens. I think I like that a lot. And yeah, this is one of those guys who just he gets in, like you said, he becomes best friends with this other fighter. We'll tell that story a little bit in a prose prequel that I'm writing that will
Mhm.
be available as part of the digital deluxe. Um, and then maybe for everybody, if we overfund to a certain point. So obviously stretch goals are in mind, but I'll publish that as a light novel. We're looking at I'm already on pace for about 35 to 40,000 words for a light novel prequel for this. So we'll
Mm.
talk about a little bit of their background and how they get to know each other and stuff like that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, this is one of those stories where yeah, this dude just it's almost a fish out of water story.
Yeah.
um, Xavier's last name is Watanabe. You can imagine why, right?
Mhm.
Having given what I already gave over to y'all.
Yep.
So obviously some Japanese somewhere in his lineage. We'll find out a little bit about that. But the most important thing is recognize this dude's still he is a fish out of water. Like he ends up in Japan for basically a funeral, and but he's also obviously like who murdered my best friend, my business partner, and that takes him in, like you said, a great description, this whirlwind tour of just mischief, mayhem, debauchery, and who knows, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're gonna find out.
Yeah, and almost in a sense, I mean, you talked about how you've you've been you're now a current fan of the show Shogun,
Mhm.
where of course a British sailor is unbeknownst to him taking a ride into Japan and has no idea of the customs, the culture or the customs that basically he was walking into as well. So like I can imagine from Xavier's point of view in this storyline that everything that he's gotten into is it's almost like, of course, I'm just more so being here as a business partner and finding out what's happening to my company because my business partner died, but yet all in a sense, this is my first trip to Japan and everything is now shocking to him, but it's all also normal to everybody in Japan.
Yeah, this I think that's the best part is like I get to read the story and kind of tell the story with Chris and Stokes from that perspective. Like I don't even know what's around the corner, right? And like, what is around the corner? Both metaphorically and literally, like turning a corner down an alley. What am I going to walk into? Is it going to be like a New York alley, or is it totally different?
Mhm.
Yeah, and it matters, right? And for those who know Japanese, metropolitan areas, like Tokyo is not Nagoya. Like that's two different cities, right? And
Right.
so, are we in Nagoya? And I'm not going to spoil anything, but like, are we in Nagoya? Are we in Tokyo? Are we somewhere else? And so, not knowing a lot of that stuff is going to take, I think the readers are going to like instantly gravitate and put themselves into Xavier's position and wonder, okay, where are we going next? First time to this big Tokyo mall. Like, what do you think? I mean, I know you and me, like, I was in Tokyo, some big Tokyo mall, especially like multi-level mall. I'd be like, and not even paying attention to what's going on around me. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's what Xavier goes through. So yeah, it's really fun. And you mentioned culture and traditions and that context, but language. I was even thinking about this today. Like if someone were to try to translate Japanese, like what's up, and you literally try to get what and up, like the nani and I don't know what the word for up is, but like it doesn't work that way, right? Like there's an
Mhm.
idiomatic translation. We say things all the time in our language that are normal for us, but like that you don't translate literally into another language that way. There's another way to say things, right? So I think this can be a lot of fun too. And we do drop some Japanese in there that we don't translate. So you'll have to have fun with your little Google phones, like translate as you go kind of thing.
I think as you should. I mean, if we're talking about it from the context of once again, we could bring up Shogun. Not only did it, I mean, if you have subtitles, sure, that's great
Yeah.
for you, and of course that evidently going to put you in the right position. But to understand the story from a Japanese perspective, you're going to have to follow along, and
Yep.
just goes to show your readers aren't dumb.
No, and no, and it's funny, because like I was talking to my son. I drive my son nuts, I'm sure. Like we were watching Kaiju number 8, and we
Great,
watched,
great show, by the way.
Oh, hey, I've been reading that Tankobon since the first English volume hit. It hit, and I was like, that was different. So I checked it out, and I was like, yo, I'm hooked. And so I bought every issue as it comes out. I pre-ordered most of them. And the anime is fantastic. But we
Mhm.
watch subtitle, and it's funny because I'll pause every once in a while and I go, he didn't say that. My thing's like, oh my god, Dad, what do you say? Because now I understand enough Japanese that some of that I realize, like we were talking about, like idioms, like
Yeah.
you know, you could translate something "I'm sorry" and they say "sumimasen." So "sumimasen" could mean "I'm sorry." It could also mean "excuse me." It could also mean a lot of things, like different contexts, right?
Mhm.
So, and that's just one example. But I mean, that's the fun part is Xavier. What he does know, how will he hear it? How will it translate? And enough people speak English in Japan. I think it's going to be helpful for him. And I will say this: that he does have a very Western centric associate that he meets in the first issue. Actually, like the first 5 pages, he'll meet this person, and that person does speak a lot of English. Very fascinated with English culture, Western culture, loves westerns, like
Mhm.
Clint Eastwood type thing. Got a nice, old pistol on his wall and get cowboy hats and stuff like that. So he's all about the American cowboy. So that'll be a helpful thing for Xavier, since he will be stuck with, again, limited language knowledge, no cultural knowledge, and a whole lot going on all at once.
So of course, I'm guessing with his first trip to Japan that he is assigned a translator almost in a sense.
Kinda. So his business partner's cousin is actually going to throw himself into the mix and help, is offer to help Xavier out. So in a storytelling kind of way, we assign him a translator without actually assigning him a translator.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of them. So he'll have Kiyomi who picks him up from the airport right off the bat. She's absolutely adorable, and Xavier does not notice that.
Hmm.
So you got Kiyomi, and then we've got other characters that are going to come along and get into the mix. It's fast, it's furious, and it happens in a blink. And I think this is 100 pages that, when if you read it all at once, it'll go over so fast. You'll be like, "Wow, that was like an MMA fight. Like it was over before I knew it." you
Hmm.
know. And I'm laying on the floor going, "How did I get knocked out by this one?" So I'm looking forward to everybody reading this.
No, now explain the dynamic because of course you talked about the fact that of course friends of the program, Chris Moses and Anthony Stokes are also co-writers on this project. How has that process been as far as having the ability to juggle ideas in order to formulate this story? Of course, 100 pages, as you talked about, 20 pages into 5 acts.
Yeah, so they're not just co-writers, I mean they're co-creators. In fact, they own this property with me, and it was important to me to really get them invested like that, because I really wanted them to tell the story that more than just a work for hire kind of a thing. It, again, they were investing themselves into this property. It was great. It was really good. So as soon as I approached both of them, they were like, "Boom, we're in. Let's go." I gave them the premise. The title is the premise, right? The full title is the premise. Um, that was the start of it, but that was like lighting a match and being around a tank of gasoline. Like it was incredible how explosive the creative like juices just started flowing for everybody. And so, yeah, no, it was great. I think Stokes and Moses, they took turns. One did one script, one did other. But how they did it is it'd be like, I say Stokes took one, so Stokes would do chapter one, the first 20 pages, and then Moses would come in and Chris would do his, add-ins, edits, whatever, and then it would come over to me, and then I kind of did the final. And then we send it off to an editor for cleanup and stuff like that. And then issue two, Moses, Chris Moses would do like issue two, and then Stokes would come in and do his thing, and we kind of do it the same way, and just kind of a little flip flop. Very, very collaborative. It was one of the most it was truly the most collaborative thing I've done yet. And I've done a lot of works to your point, where I've had to work with other writers and other creators. And this one I think was way more interactive by nature. I think the nature of it kind of dictated that. So it was fantastic. I totally work with these two guys again in a heartbeat. And I love them both. They're good friends. And it was cool because I don't know if you've seen the pictures on social, but last year in Baltimore, I gave each of them a katana. You see that picture? Yeah. So
Hmm.
I found a katana that had a sakura flower uh, cross guard, and then it had the sakura cherry blossoms on the painted on the scabbard. I forgot the Japanese word for that. I should know better. But yeah, it was really dope. It was a good time for me. It was like a little signing bonus, and there's just a nice way to gift them something because I was really proud of this and what came of this together.
Definitely. No, no, no. And obviously, they didn't take it lightly because I think I heard about this project probably in early 2023, maybe even earlier.
Yeah, it's been a
I think I heard about it in the idea phase.
I wouldn't be surprised. It was one of those things when we started talking about it, we all three got so just like giddy with the idea of what could be done with this property wise. And this is actually gonna be the most multimedia piece that I've worked on. So I mentioned already that I'm working on a prose prequel that I'll let the guys, kind of read and edit and kind of as we go. And then, of course, we have the comic, which would be a 100-page. It was originally meant to be a 100-page graphic novel, but we were all too impatient to get this out. So we really decided let's break it up into 5 acts, and do
Yeah.
floppies, which also I think it will help build the audience a little better too. And then I actually have a couple of friends who we're talking about doing friends. I mean, social media friends, but guys I worked with before. For those who don't know, Spider Squirrel actually has a theme song, and it's a rap that was produced. It was actually written Mikey Ruckus of AEW, who
Hmm.
does like title tracks for people and walk-in music and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Mikey is a friend of mine. Mikey, I've known Mikey since 2015. Um, so Ruckus did that track, and then Omega Sparks came in and laid down some lyrics on us after reading the story, and then he threw down the lines, and so he rapped the whole thing. So Spider Squirrel has his theme song. Well, I'm working with Sparks and Swats, and we're actually going to do an EP. Now we haven't determined how many tracks is going to be on there, but it's going to be a hip hop rap EP focused around American Yakuza, and then Mikey Ruckus is actually doing another track exclusive for this project as well. So we got another Ruckus coming.
So you're
So yeah, it's
yeah,
all
so,
over, man.
so you're actually providing the consumer a way to utilize not only the reading of the comic, but actually to listen to it sonically by providing a soundtrack.
You got it. Yeah, we want to really like immerse them. In fact, Stokes and Chris and I are working on a Spotify and Apple Music playlist
Okay.
of existing songs. So um, we might throw some Kendrick up in there or something. We haven't finished it up yet. We're kind of mixing it up right now, but we're gonna do that as a freebie that'll be out there for everybody to check out. But yeah, the EP is gonna be a part of the overall experience. So we'll have that. We probably won't be ready by the time the first issue hits because we're only got 10 days left on the campaign,
Yeah.
and then you figure a couple weeks for us to get the monies and then the print books, the shipping, and so. But by the time we launch chapter two or chapter three, we should have that EP cut and ready, and mastered and everything like that, ready to roll.
That's excellent. That's
So
excellent. Now, as far as like between all 5 acts and everything like that, they what do you feel like? Because if you've had the ability to spread this idea around, and of course maybe like the unfinished product before it actually hit Kickstarter, what was the reception outside of the three of you? Has anybody else read it?
a couple of people read early drafts, and a couple of raw spots that were like, oh yeah, a couple things hit, a couple things missed. So we took the feedback and just made it even better. I think overall, though, the reception is that this is definitely like one of those books that is it's different. It's fresh in a lot of ways, but it also gives people like it's a story that is confined. They saw like they haven't seen the whole story yet, but they can already tell that it's a confined
Hmm.
event, but it's not a confined story. And what I mean is like there's so much more. So I have all this backstory to lead us up to where we are today. And then even the way the last page hits, and it hits hard, you can tell there's still more, like there's more to
Right.
come. And in fact, Stokes has already talked about like, oh, I can't wait to get into that, volume two, and so we're already talking about that.
Yeah, because
But yeah,
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of Xavier is like what is going to happen when this man finds out that he's actually been involved in criminal activity this entire time?
or did he know?
Or did he know?
We haven't said yet. So,
Right.
and that's it. And that's not a tease. That's just, I mean, it is a tease, but it's not like, I'm not spoiling anything. That's the question. And you're going to wonder that, I think through pretty much all of it. So I think at the end, you may have some idea. And that's the
Mm.
best part is creating this mystery around this. So we got the singular murder, which really is the focal point of his reasoning for being there. But is that the only reason for the whole story? And that's the question that we'll answer throughout the 100 pages.
Right, right, right. Now, question outside of the box, of course, you had the ability to of course fund uh Godquest right here through Zoop. And of course you had a
Yeah.
couple projects through Kickstarter. Do you have an ideal opinion about the two crowdfunding sites about how they've been able to push comics, indie
Yeah.
comics in general to the public?
Yeah. I think, you know, so there's a couple ways to go about things, right? I think Indiegogo has a place. I think Zoop has a place. I think Kickstarter has a place. Kickstarter's king. I'll just be straight up on that one. I think one, it's not only the most dominant of the three. I know there's others out there, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of ignoring them for different reasons. One, it's just too long of a conversation to get into, and two, I don't think any of them are viable enough. Like, I can think of one right now that I looked at it a couple of times, and I had friends with projects on there, and I was just like, nah, man, I'll give you $5 of my own. I'm not putting it in this platform. Um, Here's what I think. Kickstarter, absolutely king. For novices, for new creators, your best bet is going to be Kickstarter, 100%. I've done now, this is my 10th Kickstarter, um, and I've done two Zoop campaigns. Zoop, you got to bring your audience. I think that's the big thing right now is Zoop is still in a big growth mode. So Zoop is today what Kickstarter was 12 years, 10 years ago.
Okay.
I was on Kickstarter 10 years ago, so I can tell you I had to bring my own audience back then to fund my books. My very first project failed because I didn't have enough of an audience. I went and built an audience, and then my next campaign, which was the same campaign, was successful.
Right.
That's where Zoop is today. Uh, Now, will Zoop get where Kickstarter is? Probably, but I think Everett, the CEO, the dude has come in the last couple of years and done a lot of great things. A couple of those things are still raw. The story editor, every creator out there is going, Jesus, the story editor is like both a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
Um, quick tip: if you're a story creator out there, or if you're a Kickstarter creator, build your campaign over in the story over in like a Google Doc and copy and paste it into the editor, clean it up, and then save, and you'll be better off. So yeah, that one's free. Um, Zoop, Zoop. My favorite thing about Zoop as a fan is the shopping experience. I can go and pick a
Okay.
tier, and then like I can see all the add-ons right there. I can see what's coming. I don't even have to pick one tier. I can pick multiple tiers. So as a creator and as a backer, there's a plus on that one, and that is like as a creator, I don't have to think of what combinations people would come up with. It's easy. They can mix and match. As a backer, the same thing. Like I can go, okay, I can't screw up grabbing the digital because I don't see the digital with the floppy. So I'll get both of those, and then I'll go down to add-ons. So anyway, so I like the shopping experience of Zoop, and Zoop is all comics and comics adjacent. So there's no unless like if I did American Yakuza's EP, that would go on Zoop potentially because that would be adjacent, right? It's directly tied to a product
Right.
line, puzzles, things like that. They don't do just music. They don't do just TV shows. They don't do just like it's got to be comics adjacent. So they're very committed to that, and so I applaud them for that one. Whereas Kickstarter, obviously, you can get lost
Right.
in
Right.
the in
Right.
the weeds. That's fixed a little bit with some of the algorithmic changes that they made, but there's my like big thing on that. I didn't touch on Indiegogo a whole lot. I think Indiegogo is a fine platform. I don't like from a user experience. I'm in IT, so from a user experience perspective, like it's clunky as heck, and I don't like either the shopping experience or the creator experience, but
Right.
I'll use it.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to it. I just don't think it's a great one to start with necessarily. It's good for project analysis. You ever seen those guys? He uses Paul uses IGG for like his secondary
Yeah, because
campaigns.
I've seen he'll do a campaign on Kickstarter and then probably like a week later he'll do one on Indiegogo.
Bingo. Yep, yep. So I, you know, again, if you're new, go Kickstarter. If you're Dan Ocean, you can go anywhere you want.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think
So
also I think one thing that kind of like stands out is the fact, okay, I know how many Kickstarters you've backed, and it's like almost in the 800s. I'm like,
it is.
I'm only at 244. But also just because of that fact that, they see the majority of what basically we're backing, your algorithm is more so set towards that thing. So like somebody that only backs comics, their algorithm is strictly going to be comics. So like if you're on Kickstarter maybe like once a day, you're going to be looking at comics the entire time. Nothing else is going to
Yeah.
pop up.
Yep.
So I mean Zoop is strictly comics. I get that,
Correct.
But if you're looking at I guess the plethora of what indie comics is beholden to, it's more so Kickstarter from that aspect.
Yeah, it is, and that's not a slight on Zoop. It's just the
No.
lack of time in the marketplace. That's all it is. So I do give Zoop props also for doing what they did when they did it. They started out as a strictly curated thing. You'd only have the Ron Marses, or you'd have
Yep.
the Dan Panosians, or whatever of the world, and they were selected very, very specifically. They still curate, like you still check backgrounds, they look at people's stuff, but it's not as strict, and you don't have to be as big a name. They opened that up shortly. Around the time where the pandemic kind of accelerated crowdfunding for us, and
Right,
so
right.
we saw the big hockey stick, right? Yeah. So
Yep. Yeah, no, and I've had a chance to talk to Jordan Plotsky about
I love Jordan. Yep.
yeah, in its beginnings, and I'm still highly interested in the program because
Yep.
of what he wants to gear the company to turning into, especially for what it is, even outside of comics, just strictly into the nerd genre campaign. Like he wants to do toys, he wants to do indie films and everything that are built almost in that aspect too. And when that comes, maybe that'll be the thing that kicks them off a lot further than what
Yeah.
they are.
And he's, and again, there, and you talk to Jordan, so but it's a little inside baseball. I mean, Jordan's got a bigger, Jordan and Eric have a bigger vision than just like you said, just the comics and stuff like that. Um, they want to do more than just crowdfunding too. I mean, I think they want creators to eventually have the ability to warehouse and drop ship from
Yeah.
them, so they do some fulfillment. You can opt into that for an extra fee.
Hmm.
You can do it yourself like you do with Kickstarter. Yeah, there's a lot more there, and I think what they're doing is catering to a niche market.
Yeah,
It's a strong niche, and I think it's smart. I think what they're doing is really good.
definitely. Now, when we're talking about like you said you wanted to jump into sci-fi as well, and this is something, of course, that you're going to be jumping into because of your imprints, not
Mhm.
necessarily separating, but more so expanding.
Yeah.
Is there any type of, I guess, genre that more so you would like to get into, but you were like, you know what, I'm gonna save it because if I do it, I got to do it right.
Well, I believe that with everything. I think every project, I want to do it to the best of my ability.
Mhm.
So I think most people come to expect that of me.
Yeah.
You look at that cover for Marcus that you have there for
Oh yeah.
GuideQuest. Um, you hire top tier talent. Don't cut corners on printing and paper. I always use professional letterers. Little things like that make a big difference. I say little things, but it's little because a lot of people don't think about it. So I think it's expected of me that everything I put out is going to be top tier, top quality. I won't do something if it's not worth doing. I think that's the easiest way to answer your question. If I write this, I'm at 36,000 words now or something like that for this light novel, the sci-fi light novel I'm doing. I've got some art, for it already, which looks fantastic. Um, and if I give it over to an editor and they go, "Oh, this is trash," it won't come out.
Yeah.
That's just how it's going to be, no matter how much time I put into it. And I may just use the art for fun fan giveaways, or I don't know, something else later. Like I'll make the most of it. But yeah, I won't do it if it's not worth doing.
Mm,
That's just simple as that. So but when I do horror, it's going to be the right horror. When I do D&D style mystical fantasy adventure stuff, it'll be the right
right.
thing at the right time. So
Definitely. Now, when you're talking about this prequel that you're looking to put forth, if American Yakuza is kind of like your John Woo movie, is your prequel going to be Bloodsport?
uh
Little Kumite action?
there will be so it's funny. So I actually have two prequels I'm writing for that. So one is prose and one is a manga. Um, so the manga is going to be. Have you read The Boxer from? It's a Korean manhwa. If you haven't read it, it's fantastic.
Hmm.
Go read it. Uh, I started thinking about it as I started writing it. Then I started reading The Boxer, and I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what I'm doing. Um, some issues will be like just a full on, it'd be like 3 pages of non-fighting dialogue, and the rest of it's just a fight.
Right, right, right.
So a little bit of both, I guess, is the way to answer your question. I think the prose story, we're gonna go back about I guess about we'll start out about 3 to 5 years before Yakuza happens, the comic that we're
Hmm.
back in now. And we'll actually jump backwards as far as 10 years prior to. So you're going to see the foundations of a friendship. You're going to see a lot of, or read a lot of fighting for sure, how they evolve their styles, how Xavier becomes a champion. Does he become a multi-champion in multiple different weight classes, that kind of
Right.
thing. You'll figure that out. Um, and then, um, and then you also find out like where he grew up, how he grew up, who he has in his family. You're gonna get that very personal, very intimate. Some of it's kind of autobiographical. In fact, his neighborhood is named after my old neighborhood.
Mm,
Um, the geography and everything is 100%, at least in my head, what I grew up with. And even his family, to some extent, is my family as a kid. So I'm putting a little bit of myself into Xavier. He's way blacker than me and his longer, prettier hair than me.
right.
But the point is that all of us write a little bit of ourselves and our characters, and this one's probably a little bit more personal on that side of things. Where Spider Squirrel, I interject myself in a very humorous, self-deprecating way. I think with like who's on this prose thing, you're gonna find that the character is multidimensional and he has a lot more depth than just this MMA fighter who also happens to be like owning some businesses and now on this like crazy crap going on in Japan. Like there's so much more depth to this character to be brought out. I think that's what I'm trying to do with this prose prequel.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Hey,
The
look,
action, I'm gonna save a lot of that action for the manga because I think it'd be fun to have visuals. But anyway,
no, to be honest, it would be interesting to from a novel's perspective, like almost in a written perspective, to actually dialogue an actual fight. To actually like almost see it through the words.
it's fun actually. So it's funny. I share with so you probably know Mike Watson, Freestyle
Yeah,
Comics.
freestyle.
So yeah, so Spider Squirrel, we kind of co-published Spider Squirrel with Freestyle. Um, so I gave Mike like an early draft of not even the first chapter, it was like the third or fourth chapter, kind of how it works. And I was like, hey Mike, what you think? He's like, dude, he's like the dialogue. He's like, oh my god, and I want to see this fight. He's like, but I can't tell what's happening. And I realized I gave him nothing but dialogue.
Ah,
So it was early, obviously. Like I said, my point is like I really focus on dialogue from a perspective of like allowing the characters to tell the story both in their heads and as well as with their mouth. But then getting into the fight actually becomes so much more expansive when I'm able to actually draw the visuals for you. And I do it. It's written in first person, so it's from Xavier's perspective. So a lot of eyes and what he sees. And I try to describe like some of the events. Like he gets in one of the scenes, he gets choked out, and it's early in his fighting career, and he's not a grappler at all. Yeah,
mhm.
he's just straight up. He's just a raw brawling striker, and and so he gets choked out, and he talks about like the lights is like he has an astigmatism, like they just all like it's like a J.J. Abrams movie, like it's
Oh
lens
yeah,
flares every freaking where.
just
Right.
glittering stars
Just
everywhere.
exactly. And he so I described it that way from his perspective. And I said and, he says everything is not spinning, so just kind of painting it up that way and giving a singular perspective, which I know is limiting at the same time, but it's really fun. I think, and I'll share with you, once I get some more done, I'll show you early drafts and stuff. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun for people to read. I want it to be read after we get Yakuza out, all 100 pages out to everybody. So I got time
Okay.
to wrap this up. But we'll probably crowdfund that too. It'll be the first novel I crowdfund, and I think that's going to be just a fun challenge all on its own. But
Excellent.
we'll see how it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely look forward to that. But I appreciate you having the time to let me learn a little bit more about American Yakuza. Of course, 10 days left in the campaign.
Yes, sir. 10 days. We're 77% funded. And a fascinating fact that Stokes and I noticed today is like almost 50% of our backers are brand new backers
And
to anything Zion. Yeah, brand new. So that's an outstanding growth, and it shows the potential that this story has for people, at least the premise. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, Charlie, I appreciate you having this conversation with me, man. This was great.
hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for the show, and James, I appreciate the time here, man.
Absolutely. So for myself, James Grandmaster Facts Boys here with the Facts Project, Charlie McElvy, 10 days left in the campaign, American Yakuza. Go out there and get that on Kickstarter. It's live right now. And we at the Facts Project are out.